think we both know what men are like.
Tonight, a former coffee salesman solemnly shook hands with the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh and settled back to watch his latest film. The occasion was the royal premiere of Aces High, and the star is that former salesman, Malcolm McDowell. The remarkable thing about his career is that although he's made only half a dozen films, they include some of the most widely respected products of the ailing British film industry. He first achieved stardom as the anarchistic schoolboy in If, and then world fame and notoriety as the thuggish Alex in A Clockwork Orange. After that came Oh Lucky Man, a partly autobiographical story of the trials of a young man in search of success in modern Britain. The new film, Aces High, is set among the officers of the Royal Flying Corps during the First World War. McDowell plays the youthful, arrogant, commanding officer of a squadron who finds himself forced to act like a hero when he is in fact terrified. He takes out his aggression on a junior public school colleague who's just returned from his first combat mission in which a fellow officer was killed.
He was my friend.
Malcolm McDowell, we first knew you on the screen as the anarchistic schoolboy in If and as the young thug in Clockwork Orange. Now you've come right round to a man who seems very much concerned with with correct behaviour as defined by the officer class. What kind of a person is this Gresham?
Well, he's very much a product of the public school system of the Victorian era, or just after. It takes place, this film, in 1917, just behind the lines in the Western Front. So that, in fact, he is fighting for something that is rather outdated today, for king, country, and for God. I mean, he's a great believer in God and the monarchy, and he believes that God is on the side of the Allies, you see.
What sort of general view does the film take of the camaraderie of these men, these group of men involved in a war viewed now from 1976?
Well, I think that the main thing is that it shows, really, as far as the character that I play, especially, is the fact that these characters are living under tremendous pressure and stress. The average lifespan of a pilot, age 19 years of age, was about 21 days. And they got out to the Western Front with, I think, 8 or 16 hours flying. And that was an experienced pilot. In fact, most of them never even made France at all. They were killed on Salisbury Plain.
As far as you, Malcolm McDowell, are concerned, the amazing thing about your career, and this yet again demonstrates it, is that you came straight into films in the starring role in If. You have played the pivotal part in all the films that you've appeared in, right down to and including this one. How was it that you moved as apparently effortlessly as that, from stage to screen, right into a starring role, almost as a duck to water?
It's very difficult to answer. I think I was very fortunate. I was cast in a brilliant film, I think, If. It was certainly one of the great British films of the 60s, with one of the best directors in the world, Lindsay Anderson. I mean, one couldn't ask for a better start. So I had that going for me. And he made it tremendously easy for me. I say easy, it was hard work, and I was absolutely terrified, of course. But he made it very relaxed, the atmosphere. Like all good directors, all great directors have this great knack of not actually directing. They just create an atmosphere for you to be able to create yourself. But in fact, the more one learns one's technique, and you can only do that through experience, I don't like to learn my lines, for instance, until I'm sort of actually traveling to the studio in the car in the morning, because I feel that I only want to know sort of 10% of what I'm doing. And I want to be able to create, when I get to the studio or to the location, the rest of it. So it gives it a feeling of spontaneity, as much as I can anyway.
As far as that technique goes, you have a very mobile, very expressive face, and indeed one thinks of many of the characters that you've played in terms of faces, in terms of eyes, the eye in Clockwork Orange perhaps above all. Now, given that you have that, presumably it must be very crucial to you to control, in the intimate relationship with the camera, what you do with that face.
Of course, yes. It's very easy for me as a a person and as an actor, of course, to go over the top, which means to overdo it. I tend to exaggerate, and if I did that on when you're 35 foot by 20 foot high on a screen, it's so exaggerated that it looks, I mean, just ridiculous. So the technique of filming is such that you know exactly what you can do and what you can't do, given certain lines, so that it's every look and every blink, if you like, is more or less orchestrated. This is one of the techniques of the business.
You cooperated on the script of Oh Lucky Man,
yes.
And I wonder, given that you did that, whether in general you are interested in helping to set up the films that you are involved in, or indeed possibly directing in the future.
Well, I think that it's certainly one's ambition to be more involved in the creative side of filmmaking, and that, I suppose, ultimately means directing, although I don't think that I could direct a film at the moment. I just don't feel that I'm ready for it, and I don't have a subject that I believe in enough to be able to do that.
Does the business side of it appeal to you? I mean, the business side that would be involved in setting up a project, going around and touting it, trying to get the money to back it.
Well, that's the worst side of it. I mean, it has to interest you, actually. If you want to survive in this business, you have to say, well, you have to do it. But when I do it, I put on a performance, because I don't think as a person, it is very destructive as a person. You walking in and they say, well, you're not worth it. I mean, why should we back you and your film? Why you? You say, well, I've done this and I've done that. I mean, you can't. It's like being a coffee salesman again. That's exactly what it is. And it's a very difficult business.
You seem to have been involved in films, all the films that you've been involved in one way or another seem to be, it's a rather pompous word, but it's, I think, a valid word, important films. They have related to society or to a mood of society at a given time, the time the film was made. You presumably must be very careful in choosing the parts that you do. What are the criteria?
Well, I think that you get a script through the door from one's agent, and I always make myself a cup of coffee, get back into bed, open it up, and I can tell within 2 pages whether it's going to interest me. I don't know why. I think it's a very intuitive thing. And I think that as soon as one reads a page almost, you know whether it's going to interest you. I mean, I've turned down an awful lot of work. I'm not saying that I was right or wrong, but the point is that it's a very intuitive and instinctive feeling that one has about a project. And I think that, I think actors do work a lot on intuition, and I think that's that's one's safety valve. That's what I go by.
That's intuition, that's reaction to scripts. As you look ahead, though, from your position in your early 30s, the sky's the limit. What particular projects or what particular ambitions do you have in filmmaking?
I want to be making a film when I'm 65, and anything that I can do now towards that end, I will do. I want to play the whole spectrum of parts. I don't want to play only the thug, only this, only that. I would like to do as many parts as I possibly can and make them with the most interesting people, because it's damned hard work making a film. I know you get very well paid for it, but it's a very, very waxing business. You know, it gives you a lot of gray hairs. It's a very difficult business because it is a business, you see. When you're dealing in millions of dollars, I'm going off to Rome to do Gore Vidal's Caligula, and it's being backed by Penthouse Productions, $7 million. Well, you know, if you have $7 million riding on your neck, you know, and that's really what it amounts to. And if you actually start to think about it, and I often think when I excuse myself and go to the toilet and I sit there and I know that it's about $40,000 a day, and I'm spending 10 minutes on the loo, you know, how much is it costing them?
Malcolm McDowell, good luck with Aces High, with Caligula, and with all your projects for the next 30 years.
Thank you very much.
Malcolm McDowell, whose royal premiere, Aces High, is finishing in London just about now.